Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. Nominations have now closed for the 2023 Northwest Territories election. And while every riding has a nominee, not everyone in the territory will be able to cast a vote on Election Day. That's because in 3 ridings, only one person came forward. Those candidates are acclaimed, and their constituents won't get to cast a ballot. In Montfouille, Janeway Allen Armstrong is acclaimed, as is Caitlin Cleveland in Cam Lake. And in Yellowknife South, former Finance Minister Caroline Wozniak is also acclaimed for her second term. All 3 of these women are also the incumbents for their riding. Now, the riding with the most candidates is Nahende, where 6 people will be on the ballot. You can see their names there: Sharon Allen, Josh Campbell, Mavis Clee-Michaud, Hilary Deneron, Leslie Wright, and incumbent Shane Thompson are all running. Overall, 56 people have put their names forward this election cycle. 14 of them are incumbents. If you'd like to know who is running in your riding, you can visit electionsnwt.ca, and Election Day is November 14th. As candidates hit the campaign trail, the business community is looking to them for fresh solutions to some of their most pressing concerns: a lack of skilled workers and a territorial economy in slow decline. Cindy Cohen has been talking to business people and advocates about the state of the economy heading into the 2023 territorial election.
Several business people in the territory are of the mind that essentially, if the NWT wants to grow the economy, it needs to grow its population. Rob Warburton is a Yellowknife developer and city councillor. He says the next government needs to look at ways to attract more people here, especially skilled workers. But he says housing is a big barrier to that.
There's a huge housing crunch across the territory. There's no housing anywhere. So, they're having issues getting teachers and nurses into communities because there's no houses for them to stay in.
Warburton says he'd like to hear candidates talk about how the government can work with the private sector to build more homes. Newton Gray, president of the NWT Chamber of Commerce, agrees that more housing is key to economic growth. Gray says the territory's housing shortage is closely linked to its chronic labor shortage.
When you finally get somebody here, there are other conditions that impact whether or not they stay. Housing is one of the most obvious ones.
Gray says with some creative thinking, the next government can address these challenges and create business opportunities. But the president of the Yellowknife Chamber of Commerce points out that there's a bigger issue limiting housing development.
We need housing, and in order to have housing, we need land. And in order for the city to get land, the GNWT has to give it land. And that has been one of the roadblocks.
The NWT administers 73% of the land in Yellowknife, but the city is in an area under land claim negotiations, which restricts the transfer of land. Bell says the chamber will be looking to see if candidates support the GNWT working with the city to bring more land to market. Sydney Cohen, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Elections in the NWT are different from anywhere in the country other than Nunavut. And that's because of consensus government. The idea is that it forces collaboration, but it's often criticized for giving voters no say on who gets to become their premier. Luke Carroll has more.
The consensus system is as follows. Voters elect their MLAs, MLAs vote on who gets to be premier. This is done with a secret ballot, meaning the public doesn't know who or how many MLAs voted for them. This has been criticized in the past.
The idea of transparency is, in almost all aspects of democracy, a good idea. Then not that the horse trading will be in public, it's just that the people will be accountable. So if they decide to vote for candidate A over candidate B, the community will know actually what's happened.
Coates says he likes the consensus system, but he says the secret vote can give the assumption that there are backdoor deals, even if there aren't any. He's not alone in this belief.
I think it should be public. Now that I look back, and I think the process itself of having, other than just the clerk's office, a judge and maybe even an RCMP officer in the room when they're doing it, So that's just my thought. It shouldn't just be 3 people knowing before they're destroyed. It should be others
Now, the vote for premier isn't the only thing that MLAs vote on in secret. They also elect the cabinet by secret ballot. For the same reasons, Ken Coates says this should be public.
You're very often going to have somebody who's going to be there for 3 or 4 years and for reelected again, maybe for 8 or 10 years, in a cabinet portfolio, making $1 million decisions on a regular basis. And the public wants to know how they got there and who selected them and that sort of thing.
Not everyone holds this belief. Michael Miltenberger is a former MLA and cabinet minister. He says the secret vote is what makes the system work. And he says voting in secret is a pillar of democracy that MLAs should be entitled to.
And if we don't want to have the secret ballot there in the most basic and important institution we have, where else do we want to start?
Now, what would we need to change for that vote to become public? Absolutely nothing.
Each group of members chooses how they decide to vote for premier, for the speaker, and for cabinet. So all of that's done as part of a territorial leadership committee. So the members themselves will decide how they will go about doing that election.
But Rutland says a reason previous assemblies have decided to vote in secret is that they have to work together for 4 years. And the secret vote can help with that dynamic. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
In the Yukon, opposition parties are blasting a new government program aimed at helping landlords. Both the Yukon Party and the NDP say they oppose the program, albeit for very different reasons. Chris Windier has those details.
The Yukon government will offer landlords a one-time payment of $338 per rental unit. Up to 3,000 units across the territory are eligible, and the government is budgeting just over $1 million for the program. Premier Range Pillay says landlords are being squeezed by inflation on one hand and a 5% rent cap on the other. Pillay says the idea is to encourage landlords to keep their units on the market.
They also are individuals that we want to see continue to invest in the market. We hope that if they have 40 units or 60 units, that they're going to continue to invest and maybe build another 40 units, because one of the biggest challenges we have had over the last number of decades is a lack of investment in the rental market.
But opposition MLAs are ridiculing the plan. Yukon Party leader Curry Dixon says the government is trying to solve a problem of its own making. He says the government wouldn't need to subsidize landlords at all if it simply got rid of the rent cap.
So there's a problem in the market, and the problem's caused by the Liberal government. To then turn around and say that you're going to give out $338 to landlords per unit and think that that's going to solve anything, I think is laughable. And I think it's an admission that their initial policy is failing still.
Meanwhile, the NDP's housing critic says there needs to be more private investment in the housing market. But Lane Treasure says landlords don't need the money from this subsidy. They say, if anything, it should go to tenants instead.
What comes to mind for me is who's going to bridge that gap for renters? Who's going to bridge that gap for the people who are trying to make rent and put food on the table and whose wages haven't kept up with inflation?
At a briefing on Thursday, government officials said this is a one-time only program. It's meant to buy time until the government can rewrite the Landlords and Tenants Act. The hope is the changes to that act will help kickstart more rental construction. In the meantime, the government is left defending a program its critics say is too much, not enough, and a waste of money all at once. Chris Windier, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Nunavut's Family Services Minister is apologizing to people impacted by the crisis in the territory's foster care system. The department was the subject of a scathing report from Canada's Auditor General back in the spring. Margaret Nekashuk says she hopes to table a strategic plan responding to that report in the coming months.
On behalf of the Department of Family Services, I apologize to those children and their families. I assure Nunavut that my department is taking immediate and sustainable steps to address the Auditor General's report and to ensure that the best interests of our children in our care are in the forefront of our response.
The Auditor General's report issued an urgent call to action to protect Nunavut's children. Among other findings, it found the department couldn't say how many children were in its care and it didn't appropriately respond to reports of suspected abuse. One MLA who says she's personally dealt with the foster care system thanked Nakashuk for her apology.
I know that there are many Nunavummiut who will be impacted by those words. And what we know is that healing begins with apologies and taking responsibility. So thank you very much for your apology, Minister Nakashuk.
A legislative committee studied the findings in the report last month. It's expected to table recommendations during this sitting, which runs until November 9th. Calls are growing in the Northwest Territories for a public inquiry into this summer's wildfire response. About 70% of the population was forced from their homes as multiple fires burned. Now, some who raced from the flames want answers. Juanita Taylor has that story.
There was a big explosion and I looked out. There's fire all across the hill.
Sandra Lester only had seconds to get out of her house before it caught on fire.
What was the warning like for you?
There was no warning. We were told the fire was 60 kilometers from us and we were trying to get ready to go, but nobody warned us.
Lester lived on the outskirts of the town of Hay River. She escaped to a nearby riverbed for safety because the fire blocked the only way out. Now she wants answers.
Somebody must have known because the RCMP were out here trying to knock on doors to tell us to get out, but they couldn't even get in. So somebody knew the fire was here.
I decided to launch a petition, and we've been hearing a lot of comments from people that there should be a public inquiry. It's an absolute miracle that there was no loss of human life.
Elena Katz got stranded on the highway, abandoning her truck during the Hay River evacuation.
We were trying to bring our farm animals, our alpacas and livestock dogs to safety, and we lost them.
The territorial government says it is committed to an independent after-action review, looking at everything from preparedness to firefighting and the evacuation itself.
Really, everything's on the table. You want to learn absolutely everything you can after a season like the one that we had.
The wildfire also burned more than 90% of the hamlet of Enterprise. In August, Enterprise's mayor told us there were many gaps in communication the day his community was evacuated. He wants an inquiry too.
Step up. Quit talking and start doing. And if there's a mistake and heads need to roll, they should.
The territorial government says the independent after-action review will be released by March, right before the next fire season begins. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Hay River, Northwest Territories.
The trial of an RCMP officer came to a halt today in Iqaluit, shortly after the Crown closed its case. And it's not clear when it will resume. Emma Tranter tells us what happened.
After delaying court for 40 minutes this morning, lawyers in the trial of former Nunavut RCMP officer Luke Tompkinson said they couldn't agree on evidence and need to hold a hearing before going any further. Tompkinson is charged with assault with a weapon and uttering threats in connection with an incident in Arctic Bay in 2020. The Crown wants 2 of Tompkinson's reports on the incident submitted as evidence, which Tompkinson's lawyers oppose. They note that Tompkinson wasn't under investigation when he completed the reports, and he wasn't criminally charged until a public complaint was made against him. They want the Crown to explain why that happened. Justice Christian Lyons called the need to pause the trial regrettable. A court date for the hearing will be chosen on October 30th. Emma Tranter, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The Inuit Broadcasting Corporation is concerned about changes to the way it receives funding. The Indigenous Languages and Cultures program was created in 2019 to support Indigenous languages. It helps fund some of the work done by organizations like the Inuit Broadcasting Corporation, and that money came to IBC from Canadian heritage. Now, they'll have to apply to Nunavut Tungavik and Inuit Taprik Kanatami for the money. The executive director of IBC says no one's reached out to the organization to explain what's going on.
There's been a change to how we receive the funding. The board is very concerned what the process is going to be. Is it going to be who you know, the people you know that are closest to the Eqaluit office? We don't have a clue. And
Thompson says IBC hasn't seen a funding increase in 40 years. She says that's been very challenging. She also says that none of the Inuit organizations or the government of Nunavut have been transparent about this issue.
Things are too good. I'm just scared that things will be taken away.
Think of the education they will receive.
You're going to see things you never forget.
There is no way that we are going to give up when we are threatened with cultural genocide.
Sometimes it's the beautiful things that hurt the most to remember.
You promise me that you won't look back. You are our tomorrow.
A lot happens overnight.
Hey, good morning, Heather.
Hey, good morning. How are you today? We're ready to go when you need to know. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox. We begin with breaking news, what we're learning from.
Like you see from behind us here, how big the fire is.
Your connection goes back decades.
You're giving me the hard questions.
Yep. The heroes and the helpers.
That is what we're here for.
I found Canadians. I'm Heather Hiscox. Start your day with us on CBC Morning Live.
I am in the best place in the entire world right now.
Oh, I always play with fire.
This is an epic fail.
I'm obsessed with these.
I am utterly speechless.
Do you know what destiny means?
There is no power greater than that of the people.
I will not run away.
My destiny is to rule this country.
Victoria. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Driving impaired destroys lives. A message from Mad Canada.
In the small, isolated community of Burwash Landing, 4 new houses are under construction. The Kluane First Nation is celebrating not just the much-needed new homes, but also the builder doing the work. Cheryl Kawacha tells us the story.
For the past 5 months, Gerald Patrick Dixon Jr., his work partner and crew have been non-stop on the job site.
I'm pretty excited. It's like a dream come true, you know. It's just like, you know, it's like, wow, you know, I'm finally, you know, I'm doing it, and it's like, I'm pretty happy. And
for a community with fewer than 100 people, building 4 new homes is a big deal here.
Well, there's a high demand on housing in all the communities, and currently Kluane First Nation is in the same boat.
When the First Nation put out a tender for the new houses, the lowest bid turned out to be Dixon, a citizen.
He's coming within budget, definitely ahead of schedule, and the community is very supportive of this endeavor.
Dixon has been a Red Seal carpenter for a while, but this is his biggest project ever.
yeah, no, I haven't done this before, but I'm pretty confident in myself and my skills. You know, you gotta have confidence to take on something like this. Yeah, it's like your goals. You know, you achieve your goals, and I don't know. There's no better high than that, right? And it's like, yeah, you know, I did it, man. You know, type thing. Pretty happy about it. Yeah.
Kluane First Nation's Director of Public Works checks in with Dixon regularly, doing periodic inspections.
I'm a journeyman carpenter myself from back in the day, and you know, the work I've seen has been really impressive. It's been, you know, there's been so many things at this inspection stage where you say, wow, this is it couldn't be better.
A lot of compliments on this poly too.
Yeah.
Like even some of the trade guys are like, oh, how'd you guys get it like that?
Yeah, you're going to have to share your secret with us. A local, you know, young KFN member starting their own business and taking this on. This is a huge success.
Dixon hopes to finish the 4 houses over the winter, more than 6 months ahead of schedule. And while he says it can be difficult to find workers to hire, he's optimistic about the future.
I would like to stay in the community. This is my hometown, so as for the future, it'd be good to keep the ball rolling and keep building houses for my people.
With the First Nation hoping to attract more people to move home to the community, demand for houses like these isn't going away. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Burwash Landing.
This week's Caribou Summit in Rankin Inlet has wrapped up. People came together from across Nunavut to talk about issues related to caribou. Some of those people included elders, members of the Hunters and Trappers organizations, and officials with Nunavut Tungavik and the Nunavut government. People talked about many issues, including the sale of caribou meat and increasing the number of quotas in the Baffin and Kitikmeot regions. Another issue, the vice president of NTI says people no longer use the whole caribou.
Back then, they used everything from the caribou. They had a hard time in the past where they had to eat, and if the caribou didn't come into their region, it was really hard. But at the same time, they talked about how they used everything: the bones, the intestines, the meat.
Out says we need to protect the caribou for the future. NTI will create a report based on the meetings in the next few months. Students in the Beaufort Delta will soon be getting rewards for going to school. The Inuvialuit Regional Corporation is teaming up with the Regional School Board. They both want to see kids in classes more often. And as Des Loreen reports, the prizes are pretty sweet.
Students around the Beaufort Delta could soon win things at school just for showing up. Rewards and prizes will be given to students with improved and high attendance records. Adam Wright is the acting principal at East 3 Secondary School in Inuvik. He says a student loses a lot when they don't show up to class.
It's more than just sort of memorizing a bunch of facts and figures. That you can do at home. It's the other social side of it, the interaction with people, knowing how to resolve conflicts, knowing how to go beyond your comfort zone and push yourself to your limits. Those are the things that school can offer you, but you got to be here to take advantage of those things.
A challenge to students that comes with goodies, like gift cards, certificates of achievement, and school supplies, prizes that come from the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation. This isn't the first time a local Indigenous government has helped a school district.
We're just very grateful to partner with the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, IRC, to support us with attendance. And I just wanted to mention the Gwich'in Tribal Council, GTC, who also sit on our executive, has sponsored attendance initiatives with us over the years as well. So we're just really grateful to both organizations to support attendance and make that a priority here in the region.
The prizes will be given out to students during the school assemblies. The top prize, a trip to Inuvik to go swimming at the Midnight Sun Complex. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
A Yukon documentary will soon be shown at film festivals in Ontario and California. Produced by Shakat Media and Whitehorse, Finding Peace is about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The film shines a light on the MMIWG 2S Plus strategy and looks at the lived experience of the family member of a missing woman. The Yukon Advisory Committee has a role in the film. Its job is to implement the territory's MMIWG 2S Plus strategy. The committee says Finding Peace does that.
It's to create awareness and to show people that, here in the Yukon, we have a number of things going on, much more so than the rest of the country or even the world for that matter. It's to show people that there are things that you can do that will help move this issue along.
Bill says the documentary shines a light on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and the seriousness of the issue. Finding Peace is expected to be screened in Whitehorse within the next year. There are still winter storm and blizzard warnings out there tonight in both the NWT and Nunavut. 70 to 80 kilometer an hour winds and as much as 30 centimeters of snow is possible in Paulatuk, Sax Harbor, Tuktoyaktuk, Uluhaktok, and Kugluktuk. These conditions will likely persist throughout the weekend. Here's a look at the forecast. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always go to our website, cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a great weekend.
When I arrived in Canada, there were not many women who looked like me. Not everyone was welcoming. But my husband made a new life here in this distant country. And I thought here I could belong. And many others could too. As the years went on, our town flourished. Our community worked together and took care of each other. Our children grew up with a true sense of belonging. Here in Baldi, we built our home, and we wanted others to do the same.
Established by South Asian immigrants in 1917, the mill town of Baldi, British Columbia was one of Canada's first inclusive multicultural communities.
Keeping secrets, are you? No, sir. Just like any man. Starting new. On the run.
Whatever you're gonna do, you need to do it now.
Hang on, guys. I'm sure you'll get some action.
Promise?
Putting on that apron brings me to tears. Hey!
This is an epic fail.
Where are the pecans? I don't see the pecans. The stones. The beetles.
I detest.
What?
We were failed by history. Look where we are, under that legacy.
It's really important that we own our stories.
Just remain calm. Grab the head.
You grab the head. Have you ever dealt with something like this before?
No.
It's on me now. Animal Control. Watch all episodes now.
It was awesome. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, good show.
With the comedy in, with the history.
He was really funny.
Nailed it. It was great.
Still Standing. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I was homeschooled as a child. You can only be as smart as your mom. That's it.
Gross.
Okay, cool.
I love it.
Picture a pager, a cell phone, and an email machine all in one thing.
We call it Pocket Link.
You need a better name.
What Canadian creature is often a villain in fairy tales? Likes to talk to its family a lot. Hunts in large packs for big animals. And is a close cousin to dogs. If you guessed the wolf, you're right. These mighty hunters are quite shy of people and fill an important role in nature. To learn more about wolves, visit our website at hww.ca.